Guys, welcome back to the Self Work Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Bundi, the Wellness Doctor. I'm so glad for those of you who are joining, my subscribers, my usual. Thank you so much for being here. If you're new, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here as well. Please, before you even go on watching this, you need to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening in on the podcast platforms, please hit that plus sign. That's the equivalent of subscribing, so that you can kind of be part of the family. Here we talk about everything that has to do with mental health, wellness, well-being, life topics that touch on our mental and our mind. So today we're actually talking about something that's not really typical mental health, but it actually touches on your mental health. And that's the signs of a toxic job. And I'll be telling you what I consider to be the most important sign, right? So not that all the others will be a waste of time. No, it's just that for me, this is the one where if you reach this point, you need to go. And I know this from personal experience, guys. Like, I was in a toxic job and I didn't even realize it until I reached that point, which I'll tell you at the very end. So you need to stick to the very end. So, as I was saying, I've had experience of being in a toxic job, and it wasn't toxic solely because of my employer, my coworkers, or whatever. Also because of who I became. So I was in this job for so many years, and I'm not going to be ungrateful. The job was good in that it paid my bills. It enabled me to do a master's program. I met some amazing people. So I'm not going to sit here and completely troll that job. No. There were some good things, especially at the very beginning. The first 4 years of that job were fantastic. But then the last two, we just got to this point. And what point is this? So this is the point where you start feeling like your mental health is struggling. For me particularly, I started to feel extremely anxious. I would, in the morning when I'm getting ready to go to work, I would just full on like get panic attacks. I would get so anxious. And this was around the time of the pandemic. And so I was working somewhere where I was at the front line. So not only was the job toxic, I was now also anxious of getting COVID. So I'd go to work, put on PPEs, and I'm like, am I going to get COVID? Am I going to die? Am I going to give my loved ones COVID? So it was really an anxious time for me. So the first sign of a toxic job is if you start to get symptoms of mental issues when you're at work. So either you get panic attacks at work, you're crying at work. That's probably a sign that it's the workplace that's the problem. Because guess what? When I'd leave work, I come home, I'd be fine. Or if I'm in another setting like school, because I was also doing my master's, I'd be completely okay. But then when I go to work, that's when I have panic attacks. So I knew it was the job. Okay. So aside from having some mental symptoms while at work, there's also certain things that you need to look out for. And the first one for me is when you feel stifled in terms of your growth. When you're feeling stifled, like you've hit the ceiling, you're not really growing, there are no promotions coming your way, you're not seeing any career growth, you're not seeing a future at your workplace. That's a sign that you're in a toxic job. And I don't mean that you need to be constantly getting promoted every single time. But if you've been at a job for 5 years and there is no obvious career path where you're growing, that's a sign that you're in a toxic space. Fear of speaking out. If you ever reach a point at your workplace, if you ever reach a point where you're scared to even express yourself, you're scared to say what you think or feel, that's a sign of a toxic job. And for me, I specifically felt that even saying that you're unwell and you need to take a sick day there was a bit of fear. There was this thing for you can't even say that you're feeling sick, you're feeling tired, and you find yourself working and you're not well. You find yourself working and mentally you're drained, you're burnt out. The fear of speaking out is another sign of a toxic work environment, because we are human beings. We fall sick. We have opinions. We have thoughts. Why should we be made to feel like we can't speak out, right? The third sign of a toxic job is lack of boundaries. So personally, I didn't experience this one, but I saw it play out in other people's experience at work, where people don't have boundaries. People think that they can kind of, for example, let me give you a good example. So just because you follow me as a coworker or as an employee, just because you follow me on social media, it doesn't mean you're entitled to be involved in my life in that particular sense. So you would have an instance where people are kind of like observing your life on social media, and then they kind of take away from that and kind of judge you because of who you are on social media. I have people who would perhaps travel over the weekend, and this happened to people who are close to me. You travel over the weekend and then you come back to work and people are judging you like, oh, you were just traveling over the weekend and that's why you didn't manage, that's why you came to work late today. Like I feel like social media is a space that people curate, and if I invite you into that space, please don't now then go talk about my life outside. Don't go judging me. That's We need to have a bit of boundaries. Just because we work together, it doesn't mean you are supposed to feel entitled to ask me about my personal life. Who are you dating? You know, those kind of questions. I saw it play out with other people's lives where people could felt like they could speak into your life just because they work with you. You know, somebody comes and tells you, I don't think the person you're dating is very good for you. We're not friends. We're not friends. We just work together. So I think one thing that we need to do very early on as we join a new workplace is to set boundaries. Make it clear, we don't talk about this. This is not something that I'm not allowing you into this space. Make it very clear what your boundaries are. And when somebody crosses them, check the person and let them know that we don't go that far. Right? Then the last thing before I get to my most important sign of a toxic job, the last one is if you're experiencing physical symptoms of stress. So a couple of years back, I did a YouTube video on the difference between stress and anxiety. And I'd really like you guys to watch that video. After you watch this one, just go check it out. It's in my YouTube channel. It's called Stress versus Anxiety, How to Know Which One You Have. So I highlighted some signs of physical stress, but I'll repeat them again because, we are here now. And these are things such as headaches or migraines, back pains, insomnia, muscle tension, and just constantly feeling tired. Constantly feeling tired. Even, guys, sometimes I would wake up in the morning and I am tired. Like I wake up, I've slept well, 8 hours, and I'm tired. Sometimes I wouldn't even hear my alarm because I'm just so tired. And it's a mental kind of fatigue. And that's what I'm saying. Even if you take a nap, even if you sleep 8, 10 hours, you're still tired because it's a mental exhaustion. So if you're having any of these signs together with the others that I've mentioned, you are probably existing in a very toxic work environment. And this brings me to the last and most important point of knowing that you're in a toxic work environment. And this is where I got before I quit my job and left. This sign is where you leave a part of yourself at home to go and be in this workspace. What do I mean? What do I mean? If you find that you're a different person at your job than you are as a person, you are shrinking yourself, you're making yourself become a different person to be at your job. That's a sign you're in a toxic workspace. So, well, while in a normal environment, like normal being anywhere outside of your job, you're a different person. You're happy, you're upbeat, you're energetic, you're passionate. But then when you go to your job, you find you're dull, you don't even want to talk to anybody, you're moody, you're irritable, you don't complete tasks. Like you're different. There's a very stark difference between the two people. That's a sign that you're in a toxic job because you shouldn't have to change who you are to be in any job. And for me personally, I found myself being like the job where I was, I used to be very distant and cold, even towards my patients, even towards my coworkers. Like I just would come to work, do what I need to do, get out. And even when I was seeing patients, I just used to be like, hi, what brings you here? Because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be there. So immediately I would check into work, I would be this person. Then when I leave and I come here to you guys, like to create content, I'm like upbeat, I'm happy. Or when I'm doing any other engagement, I'm happy, I'm upbeat, I'm energetic, I'm passionate. Then I just started realizing this is not me. This person I become, who is dark and irritable and impatient, that's not me. And if a job is changing you, if a job is changing who you are, the core of your being, you're not where you're supposed to be. You need to leave. So if you're watching this and you've reached that point, maybe this is the nudge that you needed. You need to leave. Nothing should ever change who you are, especially if it's changing you for the negative. And let me tell you, sometimes it's difficult to see what's ahead. But for me, I found a job that celebrates who I am. And now I'm actually who I am. I don't need to change. So I know perhaps you're feeling stuck, like, where do I go? What do I need to do? But you don't have to be there, right? So what do you do? How to cope with where you are? Because I know you need that job, possibly. You need the money. How do you cope? Number one is create an exit strategy. So I don't mean that when you reach that point, that final point that I've talked about, it doesn't mean now you quit with immediate effect and then tomorrow you're wondering, okay, where's my rent coming from? Please have an exit strategy. Have an exit strategy. Have a plan B. Start interviewing. Start something. Start a small business. Start doing something so that when you leave, you have a plan. Number two is address your own weaknesses. So for me, I had to call myself to a small meeting and realize that I also had some things I need to work on. Like I mentioned, I was getting very irritable. I used to constantly now start getting late at work because I don't want to be there, right? So, but start working on those weaknesses because you don't want to transfer those weaknesses to your new job. So call yourself for a tiny little meeting and tell yourself, okay, fine, you're in this toxic job, but what about you can you change before you end up in your new job with these bad traits? And then the last thing is try and be faithful with where you are. I know the job is toxic. I know it's a very, very, very toxic job. We've agreed, but try and do what you need to do and be faithful with the role you have. Try and be faithful and show up 100% where you are before you transition, right? So I really hope this has been helpful to you guys. I really hope somebody's watching this and realizing some light bulbs are going off and that you know what you need to do. So guys, once again, this has been another episode on the Self-Work Podcast where we help you grow, where we help you learn, and we help you understand wellness. So if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. I would really like you to send your questions either on the comment section or you find me on my Instagram because that's where we have one-on-one conversations, because I'd love to hear what you think about this. Once again, I wish you all the best in your career, in your life, and I will see you next time on another episode of the Self-Work Podcast. Bye.